happy Friday, and thanks for tuning in to RadioFreeRhinecliff.org. And this show in particular, correct me if I'm Norm, I'm your host, Norman. I'm thrilled to be here tonight with Mr. Joe Baer. Did I pronounce Baer right?
Baer. Yeah.
Joe, thanks.
Like Max Baer, the fighter.
Or Max Baer Jr.
The
Jethro.
The Hillbillies. Yeah, right. Exactly.
Are you related to either of them?
No.
Are you a pugilist?
Only if I have to be. Why?
Because things are going to get real here in the nook at the Epicurean. But you are an actor like Max Baer Jr. What else was he in except for Beverly Hillbillies?
Good question. He actually did a lot of producing, is my understanding.
Yeah,
as opposed to acting. I'm not sure how he managed to get into Beverly Hillbillies.
He was
We'll have to ask Dana Poland. I'm sure he'll have an upcoming book on the Beverly Hillbillies.
Oh, good. Looking forward to that. Yeah, he was a good-looking hillbilly. But you are an actor, and you've done a whole bunch of acting throughout your life. I read a little bit about you from here and there, I think from your website, a little bit. And you were a lighting guy?
Predominantly, yeah. Well, I tried acting early on, and then I had a family, and I discovered that I could make a lot more money behind the camera than I could in front of the camera. So I became a full-time stagehand. I had done my apprenticeship into the Stagehands Union at the Metropolitan Opera.
Nice.
And so I had a union card, so I went full-time into the union. And I was very fortunate to meet the fellow who was the electrician at Sesame Street at the time. And he took me in as his assistant. And then the studio was owned by Reeves Teletape at the time. And they also owned the Ed Sullivan Theater and a studio up at 81st Street that had a soap opera in it. And the electrician at the Ed Sullivan Theater was retiring, and the vice president of Reeves Teletape asked me if I wanted to be the electrician at the Ed Sullivan, and so I took that job, and I worked for several years there we did a show called Kate and Allie with Susan St. James and Jane Curtin.
Okay.
And still having that acting blood in me, I managed my way into the show on a couple of 3-4 occasions.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, it turned out well.
What fun. And how did that work? I mean, you must have just nudged somebody and asked them.
Well, I think the first time was when they would have run-through rehearsals, and CBS people would come on one of the days of the week to see the run-through rehearsal. And the stage manager would always read the extra lines because they wouldn't hire the extra people until the day of, because they only had a line or two, and so they just told, and we did it twice the day of. So, so there was one scene where there were 3 people sitting on the couch, and the stage manager was going to have to read the 3 people. And so I asked him if I could do it. So I sat on the couch and I read the 3 people, and I jumped from seat to seat. And then they cast me as the next door neighbor in one of the shows. And at the rehearsal for it, the day of, I was supposed to catch the boy knocking down my garbage cans. And I show up at the door with him, and I say, "Is this your son?" And they say, "Yeah." "Oh, he was knocking down my garbage cans." And then Jane Curtin and the boy would have an exchange, and then I'd say something like, "Next time I catch you knocking down my garbage cans, I'm going to make you eat the garbage." Well, I showed up at the door. She opens the door, and I say, "Is this your kid?" I've got him by the collar. And she says, "Yes." And I said, "Well, he was knocking down my garbage cans." And she says something, and then we both look at him for his line, and he's going, I had him so tight by the collar, I was choking him.
Nice. Poor kid.
Yeah. Well, he was a good kid. I forget his name at the moment, but sometimes on breaks I would take him down. He had to have somebody with him, because he was underage. So I would take him down to the arcade down the street on Broadway, because he liked to play the video games, but
right.
His mother didn't want to go, so I said I would take him down there. I enjoyed the video games too. So
that must have been a blast to be an electrician, and then all of a sudden, a couple of weeks later, you're in the air.
I got accosted by 2 big black women at the arcade who turned out to be truant officers and wanted to know why he wasn't in school. Because they grabbed him and he started screaming for me. So we had to explain the whole thing, and they ended up with tickets to the show, and it was all fun.
That's perfect. Tickets to the show. That's a nice thing to be able to pass out. And you were from around there. You're from the Bronx, is that right?
From the Bronx, yeah. Grew up in the Bronx.
Uh-huh.
And Pelham Parkway section of the Bronx.
Okay.
which appears in my monologue, the Monologue Madness, tomorrow, Saturday, starting at 7:30.
Nice. Our first
At the Morton Library.
of the hour. And Lawrence, the producer, is coming later for additional plugs.
Excellent.
I'll probably plug it as well. So you're doing one monologue, and Helm Parkway section of the Bronx appears in it.
Yeah.
And can you give us a glimpse? What's the subject of the monologue?
Oh, the name of this monologue is The Greatest Softball Game Ever Played. And it's about a softball game I was involved in when I was growing up in the Bronx. And I don't want to give too much of it away. But it was a story that I told in a show I did a long time ago called Vince Durango, Just Having Fun.
Oh, Vince Durango.
That was... I had appeared in the very first talent show at the Morton Library, and I had done a shtick that I did in some backers auditions for a show that my first wife and I were producing at the time. This is many, many years ago now we're talking. And so I did this shtick that I did in the backers auditions, and then I talked a song from the show, and it turned out...
Do you not sing?
Well, I do sing. I just don't sing well.
Okay.
So, I mean, I can sell a song. I have that actor ability to sell a song.
Right.
Much like I'll try to sell a monologue tomorrow.
Steve Allen doing Bebop Balula.
Probably.
Yeah.
And it was such a hit. I billed myself as Vince Durango at that time. I showed up in a bathrobe and a hat, and I did my shtick, and I sang my song, and everybody enjoyed it very much. And so I thought, well, maybe there's something to this character, you know.
Right.
And at that time, Bruce Willis was doing his music as Bruno. I think his name was Bruno. He had an album that he played harmonica, and he had a band, and supposedly he was Bruno. They even did a mockumentary about Bruno. He had many celebrities on it talking about their relationships with Bruno.
Wow.
And I thought, well, maybe I'll make Vince Durango. You know, I'll do Vince Durango like he does Bruno. And at the time, I was kind of into like circus arts. So I was doing hat manipulation and magic tricks and juggling and storytelling. And I was singing these songs that were already written from the musicals we had produced earlier years before. Unfortunately, it didn't really play to the audiences as well as I'd hoped, but that's all right. It was an experience, and I learned a lot from it.
Does it exist anywhere? Is it recorded somewhere?
Recorded? I don't.
Is it on YouTube?
Think so. No. No, it's not on YouTube. There might be a recording of it somewhere, but I'm not sure where that would be. And one of the things I had done later on at the talent show was a Lone Ranger bit, which was the recorded show of the Lone Ranger, except that I acted it out and mouthed all the parts, and that was very well received. I mean,
that sounds pretty fun.
It was, and I actually thought about doing it this year at the talent, bringing it back because it's been enough years now that a lot of the new people have never seen it. You know. So
it was an episode of The Lone Ranger, but you were voicing all the parts.
Yeah, it was a radio episode.
Okay.
And I would voice all the parts, and I would turn back and forth, play the Indian, play the cowboy, and like that. So that was part of Vince Durango also. That was the big close to...
I want to see Vince Durango. It sounds like loads of fun. Well, maybe it was just ahead of its time.
Well, maybe years from now when Mark Twain has run its course.
Mark Twain. Well, let me just ask before we go off to that. You said the sort of circus arts, like hat manipulation and juggling and stuff. That stuff requires a lot of practice.
Yes, it does.
Did you get any formal training on that?
Oh, well, no. Just I watched videos. And, well, juggling, I had juggled for a long time. One of my few claims to fame is that I have juggled on almost every Broadway stage in New York because I did load-ins and load-outs. And on lunch, I would go out on the stage and I would juggle. So I could say, oh, I've juggled at the Winter Garden Theater. Oh, I've juggled at the St. James Theater. Oh, I've juggled in the Majestic Theater. But, of course, it was during lunch. So
Fair enough. And was there a stage that you really dreamed of juggling on that you did not get to juggle on?
I think I recognized that juggling, while fun to do and good for the eye-hand coordination, was not the kind of skill that I was going to make a big time splash as, you know.
And was that
Because no matter what you do, somebody says, "Can you do 4? Can you do 5? If you do 4, can you do 5?" They always want more.
Doing 10 or 20 or
Oh yeah,
insane.
no, those people are, you know, they're excellent and they work very hard at it and they deserve the praise they get. But it's not, you know, it's difficult enough doing 3, especially, you know, if you can like do it under your leg or, you know, over your or behind your back or something like that.
Do you
catch it on your neck?
Do you still?
I not really. No, I do occasionally, but only to see how bad I've gotten.
Oh, that's fun. So you went to school in the Bronx, I'm guessing.
I did.
A high school nearby.
Columbus.
Okay.
Columbus High School in the Bronx was my high school, which is since closed, and I don't know. It took up a whole square block in the Bronx with the athletic field. I don't know what happened to it, but I read that they had closed it. So.
And was that a New York City school or?
Oh yeah, it was all public schools. I went to public school.
Right, and you graduated there. Did you seek further education somewhere?
Yeah, I went to New Paltz.
Uh-huh.
I was a theater student at New Paltz.
Okay, good place.
Yeah. Predominantly tech. I did scenic and lighting was my 2 strong suits. And then I studied graduate work at Indiana University, but I left before I finished because I had this opportunity to do an apprenticeship at the Metropolitan Opera. And I thought at that time I saw ads for teachers, theater teachers, for $17,000 a year. And I thought, you know, I'm spending that much for an education here. I'm going to go make $17,000 as a teacher. So I left and I did my apprenticeship as an electrician in the electrician shop. And then when I got out, I actually thought about leaving the business because my family was growing here and they were upset that I was in the city every day. And so I took a job in Hopewell Junction, working on the space shuttle at that time. And I was working for a company that had a subcontract of a subcontract for the space shuttle. And we were making little brackets for switches and all, you know, whatever it was. And I wasn't actually on the floor. I was in the office. And I would get the plans, and the plans would come, you know, a plan for this little switch, for a little bracket for a switch would come with a loose leaf binder full of specifications, you know, what temper the steel had to be, how thick the steel within this and that. And I would have to get the steel and send it out to an outside authority who would measure it and say, yes, it is that thickness. And then to somebody else to say, yes, it is that temper. And, you know, I mean, it's crazy how much work goes into making a little switch bracket for the space shuttle. And then once we built it, I would have to have it sent out and say it was bent to these, you know, specifications and this plus and minus on this angle and that angle. And the hole was plus or minus this much, you know, for the screw. And then it had to be painted or it had to be plated and it had to have X amount of plating, so many mils of this or so many mils of paint. And somebody has to say, yes, it's got all that. And I have to keep all this paperwork, you know, showing that everything that was in the loose leaf binder had been met, you know.
Right.
And then when we had the space shuttle blow up, I thought, oh my God, I hope it's not a switch bracket.
Wouldn't that be horrible?
I hope I didn't miss something, you know. Yeah, it would be awful.
Yeah, and what was it? Was the heat shields on the outside?
Yeah, no, it was the O-rings, as I recall.
Oh, okay.
It had nothing to do with me.
Right, but somebody was in charge of the O-rings.
I guess. You know, it's hard to say, and it's a long time ago, and it's very unfortunate, but it did happen, and it's over now.
So how long were you working at that place?
Oh, not that long, maybe 6-8 months.
Okay.
And then I just wasn't making enough money, so I went back down to the city because I could make a lot more money as a stagehand than I could.
And you said your family was up here?
Yeah, living in the house that I live in now. Been living there for over 40 years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Amazing. And who was in the family? You said you had an ex-wife.
My first wife, and we had 2 children, and she had a daughter from before. So we had 3 girls in the house, and my wife and me. And we had a good friend who was the musician who wrote the music for the musicals that we produced. And he was living in the attic.
I love that. So it was a musical family. You were writing, I guess, writing together and planning out the stories together. And
the kids grew up listening to us have rehearsals in the downstairs living room.
that sounds lovely.
Yeah, they enjoyed it.
And what are they doing now with kids who grew up like that?
Oh, well, my wife's daughter, my stepdaughter, Autumn, she lives in Buffalo, and she has various odd jobs. She's married to a fellow who works at the University of Buffalo. And Willow actually works in the governor's office. She's an aide to the governor, a deputy commissioner for developmental services, I think is her department. And she's got like 50 or 70 lawyers working for her. And Amber is down in Virginia Beach, and she has a 4-year-old, Liam. And she runs a dental concern down there.
Wow.
Yeah. So they all turned out okay. They don't live at home, so I'm very pleased.
And they all fell a little bit far from the tree. I mean, none of them are in show business. Do any of them do community theater or
Willow was involved with theater for a while, but and she pursued a career in television when she first got out of Ithaca College, but then she decided that she wasn't going to make enough money doing that. She went back to law school, so made a smart choice.
Oh, yeah. So at some point you moved from, the technical, the electrical, the set side. Are you retired or whatever? How did you get into the creative end of it?
Well, for many years I worked on Broadway shows. I worked in TV studios, on sitcoms, and a lot of talking heads. That's a lot of the work in New York is talking heads. But when I stopped working in 2010, I didn't officially retire from my union until 2015 because I was 55 in 2010 and I didn't want to take the early retirement and lose the money. So I just waited till I was 60 and then I took the retirement so I would get my full retirement.
Okay.
But I had seen people doing things all my life and I thought to myself so many times, I said, geez, I could do that,
Right. You had been doing it you're in the basement of your home, kind of.
Well, yeah, earlier,
right.
There was a long period where I just did the tech stuff,
Okay.
So, that was when I first, and then I just did the thing as Vince Durango for the talent show, and it went so well that was when I thought about doing Vince Durango. And then I did some work over at the Performing Arts Center, Camelot over there, and then I got interested in doing the one-man shows. Originally, I did them as fundraisers for the Grange. Mm-hmm. I did the I forget the name of it now, the Clarence Darrow one-man show that Henry Fonda did in the 70s.
Inherit the Wind, was that it?
It wasn't Inherit the Wind. It was I can't remember the name, but it's the story. Well, it's the Inherit the Wind is what Clarence Darrow is known for, and it's more or less the story of his life, and historical perspective about him. And I did that at the library, and people enjoyed that very much. You might have seen that on the website if you went to the website.
Yeah,
there's photos of that on the website.
Yeah, I did.
And then we were looking for something to raise money again for the Grange. And so I thought about I wanted to do a one-man show again because when I did the show at the Performing Arts Center, it's such a pain working. People don't show up on time. They don't know their lines. At least when I'm doing my own thing, I can count on myself.
Right.
I was always the guy on time knowing his lines, and I got tired of being the only one. So I said, I'll just do an only one show. Mm-hmm. And
So did you propose it to them, the Clarence Darrow show?
To the Grange?
Yeah.
Well, I'm a member of the Grange, and so I'm at the meetings, and we talked about fundraising stuff. We're constantly doing fundraising to fund the scholarships that we give and the money that we give to the food banks and Doctors Without Borders and things along that nature.
And like once a week you have soups for people?
The soup sales, that goes to the Grange to help us doing all that good work.
Yeah.
And that's been very successful for us.
And the Grange is a Rhinecliff thing, or it's Rhinebeck?
The Rhinebeck Grange. So many of the Granges have closed down that we've sort of become the Northwest Dutchess County Grange. We have people from Red Hook that were in the Grange, and their Grange closed, and they came to us, and Rock City closed, and they came to us, and right now, unfortunately, we're down to like maybe 6 people left. Because it's tended to be an older crowd in the Grange.
Right. And what kinds of people were they? Sort of agricultural people or makers?
The Grange does promote agriculture. And they're a national organization, and they have lobbyists lobbying for agricultural bills in Washington. And we can offer suggestions as to a bill to be made a law. And then if it gets through the state Grange, it goes to the national Grange, and then they'll lobby for those things that we want,
So,
or that we suggest.
And you've been a member of the Grange for a long time, decades.
Me?
Yeah.
I went to a meeting where they were discussing closing, and I thought it's a shame to close, this organization. And so I'd say I've been a member for maybe, I want to say 15 years. Okay.
And down to 6 members. Are they discussing closing again?
Well, we're still young enough. I think we're trying to raise more money for our community foundation fund, so that when we do close, there'll be enough to really continue to sponsor the scholarships that we give and whatnot, even if we're not around.
Right. So you're building up sort of an endowment.
We're trying.
Well, that's great. Good for you. And why would I'm just thinking you need more members. So, who would join and why would they join?
Well, they would join to help.
Right.
We've had people come and go. I think maybe there's not enough activity for them, or there's too much activity for them, or
right, or not the right kind of activity.
It's hard enough getting people to join the fire company.
Yeah.
Which I'm a member of the fire company as well.
Oh, nice. And how long have you been a member of the fire company?
I want to say probably 20 years.
Yeah.
I joined late because I was in the city all the time.
Right.
My wife is a member of the fire company. She was an EMT for many years. But just getting people to join, volunteer for any organization nowadays seems to be a real troublesome thing.
I was not aware of that. I bumped into somebody the other day who was new here, and he said, well, how can I don't really have friends. It was a guy my age, like 60 or 50 or something. And I said, well, join a nonprofit, start volunteering for anything, like go rake at Wilderstein, or, just volunteer.
Sure.
Make a radio show. And, it seems a great way to do that.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking, and now the wheels are turning. Like, how do you get more members for the Grange?
Exactly. How?
Yeah.
When you figure it out, let me know.
Well, let's talk later over another drink. Now, you brought a drink. What is this that we're enjoying here? It's a drink in a glass with a spoon.
Yes, it's bourbon slush. It's the Mark Twain bourbon slush. You asked me to bring something that Mark Twain might have enjoyed, and I know he would have enjoyed this.
Okay.
He enjoyed his bourbon and his cigars, and I think my wife makes this from an old family recipe. And it used to be Aunt Carol's bourbon slush, and now she has renamed it Mark Twain's bourbon slush.
Oh, that's sweet.
She names everything Mark Twain now. She's constantly promoting the show.
Oh, that's great. That's fabulous. And it's sort of a granita with bourbon. And what else is in there?
There's bourbon and tea and lemonade and orange juice and water and cherries, and it's icy. It's a great drink in the summertime.
It is. It's a slushy. Yeah. It's really, really delicious. Thanks for bringing it. And why does she name everything Mark Twain?
Well, excuse me as I finish swallowing my slush. Well, she's very, we're a team, and she's as involved in the Mark Twain project as I am. She she did all the research for the slides that are in the show.
Oh, wow.
She runs the slides.
Which you won an award for the slides.
She won the award for the slides.
Well, I mean, you all.
Yeah. We all did. Me and her.
Yeah.
But that one was specifically her. It was for slide research and management. And she researched and got the slides, and she runs the slides during the show. And in the productions we've been doing through the Dutchess County, Hudson Valley, she ran the slides and the lighting at the same time. So she was the crew for the show. She's also my makeup artist and helps me get that friggin' wig on.
Oh, yeah?
I hate the wig, but
Oh,
you got to have it on.
Why do you hate it? It looks great. I saw the pictures
No, it does
on your
look.
website.
It does look great. It was made by a professional wig maker, a Broadway wig maker, Backstage Artistry, Jared Janis, and he did a wonderful job. And it does. It looks marvelous. I just hate wearing it. You know, when I had done the show early on, when I did it originally at the library, I bleached my hair. Because I wanted white hair, but I wasn't going to invest in a wig. So I bleached my hair. And that was probably what you saw me out at Wilderstein when I had the bleached hair. And then when I decided that I was going to pursue it, I said, well, I got to get a wig. I'm not going to bleach my hair, and bleach the roots every 6 weeks. And
right.
So, so then when I dyed my hair brown, everybody thought, oh, he's dyeing his hair now, because they thought I was really that old that my hair was white.
That's funny. So tell us about this show, this Mark Twain show. How long have you been doing that?
Well, we're going on 6 years now. It's in its 15th revision. I think I finally got it to a spot where it works really well and the audience reacts very well to it. It follows his life from early on. Originally, when I thought about doing the one-man show, I went and looked at the Hal Holbrook Mark Twain Tonight show.
Right.
Because I had seen that in the 70s, and I thought that was a great show. I said, well, I could probably do that, no problem. And then I watched it again, and I was like, well, I don't know if an audience today is really going to, if they're going to really react to this the way they did back in the 70s, or even earlier, because he had done it for so many years. So then I started exploring writing my own. And like I said, I'm in the 15th revision now. I did take the idea in his performance. He does sort of a condensed version of Huckleberry Finn that I have taken and do in my show, except his concentrated more on the Pap-Huck relationship, and mine concentrates more on the slave Jim-Huck relationship. But that's in the show. And it follows Mark Twain's life, and it's filled with, his snappers. As he says, when he finally started lecturing, he says how with each lecture he improved his ability to create tension with his audience and then release it with a snapper. And that's pretty much what it is. I do his life, and pretty much each little section of his life ends in a snapper, which
right.
the audience seems to enjoy. So,
And was it Hal Brook who sort of drew you to Twain in the first place?
No, it was only because I was Hal Holbrook. Yeah, Holbrook. I was familiar with that. He had a one-man show about Mark Twain, which is why I went back and looked at it. The same way with Clarence Darrow, I knew Henry Fonda had done this one-man Clarence Darrow show, so I went back and looked at that. And but that I paid the royalties. I did the script that was written for it, and but this one is put together from all sorts of research about his life.
But how did you land on Twain? I mean, it could have been anybody, really.
Well, because I started with Holbrook, and then I thought, well, maybe I could write my own. So I started reading some of the biographies about him, and I just got interested in it, and I just pursued it.
That's great.
Yeah.
And then your wife, Cynthia, who's an art teacher here in Rhinebeck, she started reading the biographies with you. Were you guys sort of getting up to speed at the same time?
Well, no. I'm sure she's done. Her research was more about the time periods and the things that he was talking about that are mentioned in his show, because she had to find, what do you call them, riverboats of the right era, that he mentions, when he was a pilot on the riverboat, and when he was in the Civil War for 10 days, I think he was in the Civil War, and then he escapes to out west to the gold rush, and had to leave. If it hadn't been for the Civil War, he'd probably have stayed as a riverboat pilot, because he really did love that.
So when you're talking about riverboat pilots, you have a slide, a historically accurate slide.
A variety of them, of the different types of riverboats that he was piloting at that time. And then, of course, the people that come in and out of his life, his wife, his children, his what's his name? Artemus Ward was an influence on him, who was, a lot of people think of Mark Twain as the first stand-up comedian and he enjoys that title pretty much. The Mark Twain Award is given to a comedian every year by the National Endowment of the Arts, But I believe Artemus Ward was actually he's the guy that decided, well, I say these funny things and I could get up in front of a room full of people and probably entertain them with it. But of course, he died young from tuberculosis, and Mark Twain lived a good life.
And so is he part of your show? I don't think I'd ever heard of Artemus Ward.
Oh, yeah. Well, he meets Artemus Ward in San Francisco when he gets back from the Sandwich Islands, writing letters for the newspapers, which is how he first becomes established. He would write humorous letters to the newspapers, and they would hire him to do that. And he gets back from the Sandwich Islands, and he meets Artemus Ward in San Francisco, and Artemus Ward has read some of his writing and knows about him anyway, and they get along very well. They go drinking and cavorting and sashaying around until Artemus Ward has to go back to New York. And Artemus Ward writes him asking for a story for a new book he's putting together on Western humor. And of course, being the dedicated writer that Mark Twain's becoming, he immediately puts it off. And his story arrives too late. But Ward's editor sends it on to the Saturday Press, and it's the celebrated Jumping Frog of Calaveras County, which is his first big hit, and sort of makes his name known nationally. And there,
where did it first appear?
The Saturday Press in New York City.
So when you say his first big hit, how does that unfold? Way back then, when you have a hit, does it get picked up by other newspapers?
It was reprinted up and down the East Coast, across the country to California.
Okay.
If he had been a conceited ass before, well, now he was unlivable.
That's so great. Yeah. So is this some of the voice? You do a Mark Twain voice.
I do. I do a Mark Twain voice, which is why I don't do the exercises. I usually end up doing the lines during the day prior to a performance, and it's kind of wearing on my voice, so I try not to do it out loud any more than I have to.
And are there recordings of Mark Twain
there
that you
aren't.
Could go to school on?
There's no extant recordings of his voice. So there's only a little bit of film footage of it. He wouldn't do recordings.
Right. So is there somebody else? Is there a character in a movie or a TV show or somewhere that you go to school on for that voice?
No. I'm not trying to imitate Mark Twain. I couldn't if I wanted to.
Right.
So I'm really just trying to personify him. I'm trying to present him as a 21st century Mark Twain. He was known for speaking very slowly, and audiences today don't want to wait for you to get to the punchline.
No, I didn't want to wait just now.
Yeah, of course not. I took a stand-up comedy class many years ago at one point, and they talk about laughs per minute.
Yes.
But so I try to present him in a way that I think new audiences or modern audiences will accept him more readily today.
Right.
And if he was alive today, how he might be today. It's my interpretation of it.
Right. Now, you say audiences today, it makes me think, race was a big part of Huck Finn. And it was it controversial at the time? Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Later in life, he wrote a lot about race and about slavery. But he grew up, he didn't, not that I've been able to find that he owned slaves, but slaves were a way of life, at that time. And
right.
He talks about how at one point and even though England had banned slavery some 30 years earlier, we were still discussing it in this country. Of course, what is it that he says? I'm losing it now. But anyway, he didn't approve of slavery, but he didn't think he had to or be against it. It was what it was.
Right.
And it was preached in the churches in Missouri where he grew up. That it was God wanted it that way,
Right.
So he just accepted it until later in life when he realized what a misservice it was, not just to blacks but to poor people everywhere in the world who were mistreated. He became quite a bit of a charge. I don't know if you've ever read the war prayer that he wrote.
I've read about it. It sounds wonderful.
Yeah. Well, it's it's a prayer that mothers are making, that their sons are going off, and that they're going to kill and maim and destroy those people who are trying to destroy us. And it's very moving, and I think a lot of people would benefit from reading it today. He's also got some passages that you'd think he was writing about the political situation in our country today,
Right.
Which I don't have off the top of my head. But he was kind of a visionary.
So you said that this version, the 17th version or whatever, 15th of your Mark Twain one-man show, focuses more on the relationship between the enslaved Jim,
right,
and Huck Finn.
Right.
Do you get, and you performed this a bunch, do you get pushback from audiences? People ever say, "Oh, you can't do that," or "You can't say the word slave anymore. Now it's enslaved person"? Or
no, I haven't gotten that. I'll be honest. I changed all of the N words to black, and where I do all the characters in the show, I play the character until I get to Jim, and then I do Huck telling what Jim said, because I didn't want anybody thinking I was trying to mock a voice of a black person back in the day,
Right.
So I did purposely try to avoid insulting anybody or hurting anybody's feelings or stepping on any toes. And, unfortunately, I haven't had that many blacks in the audience, so I don't know what they think of it.
I was just going to say,
yeah, I wish I did.
Mostly up around here.
Yeah.
Which is not super diverse, but you're taking it to New York City, right?
Yeah.
Off-Broadway.
Exactly.
Pretty soon. When does that open?
That opens, it's in previews, starts May 6th, and the official opening is May 13th. That's the day before Mother's Day, I believe, yes. And it's at the Actors Temple Theater at 339 West 47th Street in New York City. I mean, the same reason we added the slides. The slides were not part of the original show. We added the slides because I'm hoping to get more young people in. Young people, I don't think they're interested to see one person on stage talking for an hour and 20 minutes. So I thought maybe the slides would help bring a younger audience in. But so far, it really hasn't done a whole lot that way.
Right.
People, they don't even know who Mark Twain is. They don't read Tom Sawyer in school anymore,
Do they still read Calaveras County, the Jumping Frog?
I doubt it. I remember asking one if he was familiar with Huck Finn, and he asked me if that was a TikTok.
Well, if the name's free, you should be Huck Finn on TikTok. Well, that's amazing. So is it like an 8 performances a week kind of run?
No. It's Saturdays and Sundays, Saturday night and Sunday matinee, 8 o'clock on Saturdays, 2 o'clock on Sundays.
And will Cynthia be there running
Absolutely.
the slideshow for you?
She'll be running the slides and doing the makeup and helping me with the wig. I don't think she'll be running the lights, because I think we're going to have to do it from 2 locations.
Right.
So, but if need be, she can. If anybody could do both in 2 different locations, it would be Cynthia.
It's a real art form, running the slide for a monologue like that. So that's so sweet that she's going to be there. And so will you do something to try and get reviewers in?
Yeah, well, we've hired a publicist and a general manager. And and we're planning the ad campaign now for the city. And hopefully people will come. And, ultimately it's like anything else. It's going to turn out to be word of mouth more than anything for something like this.
Right.
And I just hope that I can, my big hope is that I attract somebody who has the connections and the experience and the financial backing to help take it to a higher level, a bigger level, because, I can't be doing the lighting and the setup and the breakdowns anymore. Right. If that can't be taken care of, then I'm probably done doing it,
Right. So you're doing it all in this.
I have been doing it all.
Right.
And I'm doing most, in New York, it'll kind of stay set up. So it won't be, when I did it at wherever in Ellenville, I had to load it in, set it up, do the show, tear it down, take it out, take it to Armenia and set it up and do it and tear it down and load it out. And I just...
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm tired just thinking about that.
Well, just to get... to find out if audiences were enjoying it, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, because, I made money, but I never made enough money to pay for what I was putting into it. I'm still not making enough to pay for what I'm putting into it. But,
Right.
But I just want to see if it gets a good enough response that maybe it's worth going someplace. You know, the unions in the city have been very helpful to me. My family, my brother, my children, they've all been very supportive. And Cynthia's been the real rock for me in the whole thing. You know, I got to be honest.
Well, hats off here. I'll raise a toast to Cynthia being so supportive.
Mark Twain slush.
Yeah, I'll raise a Mark Twain slush toast to her. And you said the unions have been supportive. What does that look like? Well,
I was a union member. I still am a union member. And I didn't want to go and do a show in the city. And, I wanted the blessings of the union because I'm not hiring a union crew to do the show. It is Off-Broadway. And they were all very understanding. And they gave me their blessing to do this. And that if it does become a big show, that, I said, obviously, I would look to hire union people at that time. So,
right.
But they want to see me succeed as well as anybody does.
So who do you go to? Who do you get the official blessing from?
Well, I got it from, I go to the business agents for the unions. And of course, they probably go to their higher ups and say he wants to do this, who actually makes the final decision, I don't know. But I would talk to the business agents of Local 1, Local 798, 764. And
how many unions were there to sort of get the approval?
Those three were the three: the makeup and hair, wardrobe, and stagehands were the three unions. I mean, I didn't have to deal with the directors union because I don't have a director. I didn't have to deal with the stage managers union. I don't really have a stage manager. My wife basically is the stage manager.
But so you don't count as the director, and Cynthia doesn't count as the director.
As the director, no, I'll be honest. Not that I probably could use a director at times, but part of the development of the show was when I'm in my 15th revision, it was more like performance art in the beginning, because I would add stuff. I would do stuff different each night. Every time I did it, I didn't have the same blocking. If I felt like I should go over that side of the stage, I'd go over that side of the stage. If I had heard something I thought might work in the show, I would work it into the show that night. And, it finally arrived at what it is.
And how long has it been static there where it is?
Oh, I would say, I think I finally settled on it before we went to Rome, New York for the theater festival.
Okay.
I said pretty much this is it. And this all started because, when I was a stagehand, I was doing follow spots for Big River, which is the Huckleberry Finn musical.
Right.
And Roger Williams was the composer for the show. And the audiences weren't doing that great, so they brought Roger Williams in to play the role of Pap and sing the Pap song. And I'm up in the follow spot booth, and he comes out, and that was all he did. It was a promotional thing to try and get the audience's numbers back up. And one night he came out, and he sang a different set of lyrics to Pap. And I mean, who does that on a Broadway stage?
Yeah.
He wrote the song, and who's going to tell him, oh, no, you can't sing your own lyrics. They're his lyrics.
I love that.
And I thought, how cool is this to be able to go out on the stage and just do whatever you think, needs to be done.
Right.
And I think that sort of motivated me a little bit in the back of my mind towards a one-man show thing as well, because I didn't want anybody telling me I couldn't do this or I had to do that.
Right. And when was this theater festival in Rome, New York?
It was the weekend before Thanksgiving last year.
Okay. Is that where you won all of those awards?
The 5 awards from the Tannies organization, yes.
Uh-huh. Which is the Theater something of
Theater
New York
Association
State.
of New York State, yeah.
Tannies. Well, that's just amazing. So it must have made you feel pretty good.
It did. It made me feel very good. Years before, when I was with my first wife, we had done a show and we had taken it to the theater festival back then. I want to say it was 1983, maybe 82, 83, somewhere in there. And we had a 2-person musical that we had produced, and we took it to the theater festival, which was in Corning, New York at that time. and she won a Best Director award, and the fellow in the attic, he won a special award for music. And we ended up taking that down to the city. And we were very fortunate. We lost $50,000 of other people's money on that. So. That's good. Yeah. But so I had been involved with them before, so I was interested to do it there. And so I kind of researched, were they still doing their festivals and whatnot? And so I arranged to do it there.
So you're doing this night after night, or at least a bunch of times. Are there parts that you just love to do? Are there parts of dialogue that when you get to it every time, you're like, oh, good, I'm about to get to this thing that I love doing?
Yeah, there are certain sections of dialogue that I really look forward to. I'll be honest. I look forward to them because they tend to be the biggest crowd pleasers in the show.
Right.
And I look forward to getting that response from the audience. So I'm not going to share them here.
Oh, come on. And when you say crowd pleaser, I'm guessing that means laughter.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, one of the lines in the show is, I'm trying to remember it exactly now. I'm so wrapped up with this and the monologue, I'm losing my other lines.
Right.
Anyway, he talks about how laughter is the greatest weapon that man possesses. So never regret anything that makes you smile.
Right.
And it is. I mean, the audiences love it. They enjoy the snappers, and there's several of them in the show. And I hope people will come down to the city and check it out and go to a restaurant and see the show. And
it's called Samuel Clemens, Tales of Mark Twain.
Correct.
That's great.
Hi, Lawrence.
Oh, look, we're joined here in the studio by Lawrence Miller. Hello, Lawrence. How you doing?
Hello, Norm.
Who is
great.
The producer of the Morton March Monologue Madness fundraiser? Is that right, producer?
Well, that's what I'm calling myself. Yeah.
That's good. Are there other things you call yourself?
Not on the radio.
Later night or in early morning hours?
I can't memorize dialogue anymore. I used to act, so figured those who can act produce,
And have you, I never heard that. Have you two acted together ever?
We act up together. No. We've seen each other's productions, but this is the first time we're going to be in one together. So
That's great. And how did you come up with the idea, or did you come up with the idea for this Monologue Madness fundraiser?
Well, I was just telling Sandy over at the Morton. Last Thanksgiving, I was at my friend Lauren's house, and her son Daniel is at Baer, and he's taking a course called The Joke is Literature, and he wrote this essay, and I thought, wow, this is really good. And I said, monologue, I mean, I've done 2 evenings of short plays before the pandemic, and I wanted to get back into it, and just that, hey, this might be a change up, and I've really not seen it done anywhere, I mean, I know they have the Moth down in the city and things like that, but I've not seen it done locally. And it's easier to produce this, to put it on, than, the plays were, I had to find all the playwrights, and they had to get directors and the actors, this one,
Right. Like, and this is tomorrow.
Tomorrow night,
Saturday,
7:30. Yes.
7:30 at the Morton Memorial Library and Meeting House, in the Meeting House section of it all.
Morton Hall, I think that's its official name.
Oh, everybody's got a different name.
Right. Yeah.
I like that. And what's the capacity there?
Well, I just spoke to. There's 100 seats, 100 chairs.
Okay.
But then people can stand around. I mean, I don't know. I don't mean to be boastful, but I'm kind of worried we're going to get more people than it can accommodate.
You have 10 performers?
We have 10, yes.
Okay.
We have 10, right.
And
I've asked everybody to bring, tell, your whole list.
Because it's a fundraiser. You want everybody to come and drop some money in the hat.
It's always a fundraiser. And the first 2 that we did are the same thing. I mean, it's just...
And is it, is there a suggested donation?
None.
It's just
none.
come
But
drop
we
money in
found
the hat.
that people are more generous if you say it's by donation. Because everybody loves the Morton. So who wouldn't want to give? They don't want to give money to me.
The Morton's an amazing institution there.
No,
and Sandy is such a wonderful head of it.
I was at Star for 11 years, and then Sandy asked me if I'd come over to the Morton. It's like, you don't have to ask me twice, it's my home now.
And what were you doing at the Star?
Same as,
okay.
I was the Sunday guy at Star.
Okay.
And I got tired of having all my Sundays.
And Sandy stole you from the Star?
Well, things changed there when Sandy became the director. she used to do Saturdays. And then she said, would you like to come over? And Saturdays at Morton are 10 to 2, which means I have most of the rest of the day. At Star, it was noon to 4. So that kind of cut the whole thing up. So this is my life.
And so you pulled this thing together, and there was a call for entries on social media.
Yep. Well, it was not just social media. I mean, I was in marketing, my former life, and I just looked at, different theater companies and, people that I knew personally. Some people I solicited because I knew that they would accommodate me. And he even got a pass for rehearsals. You're the only one,
I wasn't able to make it.
No, but that wasn't it. What do you need to tell Joe Baer? Nothing.
Yeah.
Nothing whatsoever.
Yeah.
So anyway, I was concerned that, I didn't know how this was going to fly. And we did get, probably 24 submissions.
That's great.
And we went through. I have my partner, Linda Sales. She's the one who does this with me.
And she's going to be performing as well.
She will be performing. She and I are bookending. She's going to open the show, and mine is going to be the last.
Oh, nice.
So just kind of a little unity there. And it's a really interesting mix of stories. It's like 3 genres. There's funny, there's serious, and there's a couple that are kind of heavy. So, and we're mixing it all up so that, you're not getting too inundated.
Smart.
And then there's yours, it defies description.
We're bookending.
One. I already have you on the show. You need to butter me up.
We're bookending intermission, I understand.
Oh,
yes, you are.
You're at the end of Act 1 then, I guess.
You're the beginning
of Act 2.
Because both of yours are pretty long, and we thought, okay, we should take a breath in between, so.
Yeah. And how long will the intermission be?
15 minutes.
And what do you expect the running time of the show?
Well, that's a good question. I asked everybody to give me, their timing, and I never really got it. And of course, you made me aware that, oh my goodness, when you say something that's funny, people are going to laugh, hopefully, and you need to, account for that time. So I'm thinking an hour and 50 minutes with the intermission.
Okay.
We're shooting for an hour and a half. It may be that. It may be closer to 2. We'll see. If we don't lose anybody intermission, then I know it's going okay, so.
Well, you're definitely going to lose some people at intermission.
I did one. Our first one was several years ago. It was a short play thing, and it was in June, and it was unbelievably hot. That Morton's little air conditioner doesn't really cut it.
Right.
And, there were about 25% of the audience left, but I knew what it was. I didn't take it personally. So.
Right. Oh, well,
do you guys want to just mention what yours are about, just briefly? Or
I think I already mentioned mine a couple of times in the show. I gave you some plugs earlier.
Oh, good.
So.
Okay.
Yeah, it's been a nonstop plug.
Okay.
I'm doing a couple of pieces from this Norm's memory sale. Where I had, curios, bric-a-brac, tchotchkes that I wanted to get rid of in a yard sale. And instead of just doing that, I created fictional provenances for them, made up stories about how they came into my life. And so I'll be reading 2 of those. I'll have the objects there as well.
Yes. When you say made up, you mean not all of it is, and we've embellished some of it, or?
It's 100% fiction.
Oh, it is? Oh.
Yeah.
You fooled me.
Yeah, that's what I mean. That's what I mean by made up and fictional provenance.
Well, mine is not. Mine is going to surprise a lot of people. But
oh yeah, oh good. Are you naming names and pointing fingers?
Well, there will be some names. Yes, there will.
Wow, I can't wait.
Yeah, no, it's going to be great. I'm really looking for. The weather's going to be crappy, so I don't know.
Oh, it is.
That's going to. Yeah, it's going to be like rain, maybe cold. Whatever.
And Tracy Carney's involved in this too.
Tracy,
right?
yes. I'm sorry, I should have mentioned her before. Tracy and I have worked together. I did a lot of stuff at the center. We acted together. She directed me in things. And I asked her because you need 3 people when you're going through the scripts because, you got to figure out which ones you're going to take. And if it's just 2 of us, well, you like this, I don't like this, what do you do? So this
you
we're
need a
having
tie-breaking
3.
vote.
Exactly. So
That's
it was
funny.
great because there were some that I loved that both of them said, and then there were others that, I said, no, this is going in. I just love this,
And how much sort of direction are you giving to the performers, or have you been giving them?
No, we had rehearsals, and Linda and Tracy are directors. I'm the logistical guy. I'm the business guy.
Right.
I'm the one who puts all this together, but I leave all that stuff to them. And, there wasn't a lot of directing they needed to do, just slow people down, speed them up, just different parts to give emphasis to. So, it's not like a regular play, but it's helpful. People needed it because this is something a lot of these people have written these things and never never read them out loud. So, it's a whole different thing.
Or so are most people reading them? Or
Yeah. There was one guy who wanted to memorize it, but
I did memorize it.
You did?
Of course I did.
Show off.
I always memorize it. I don't do anything.
This
for
is a
paper.
piece of cake for you after Clemens, But
Yeah.
Anyway, no, everybody else is reading it, So, but I mean, hopefully they're familiar with it enough that their head is not buried in the script.
Yeah.
They'll be able to look up.
Well, I went to rehearsal, and you guys said, "Hey, could you possibly look at the audience a little bit, and so your head's not buried in the script?"
Yours was it buried?
That was the note I got, like a little more eye contact with the audience.
Well, and we're not sure. I mean, I told you earlier today about we're not sure about the end of the end of the stage thing there.
Right?
Because Sandy just showed me where all the chairs are going and everything.
Right.
And
I like sitting on the side of the stage. And
I get it.
swinging my
When you
feet.
did it, I said to you, I'd like to do it too, but I just don't.
Well, I'll go wherever you need me. I'm thrilled to be a part of it. And
Well, we're
honored
happy
to have
to
been
have
chosen and
both
to
of you guys.
share the stage with
It's Rhinecliff royalty. I mean, it's
all
wonderful.
you people. All this Rhinecliff royalty. Okay, I've got another question for Joe, which is Mark Twain's nicknames. I mean, his pen name.
He had several of them.
Yeah, how did he choose his moniker? And what were some of the runners up?
Well, he mentioned several of them in the show. At the beginning, my name is Samuel Clemens, but you probably know me by another name, Thomas Jefferson Snodgrass, or Rambler, or Ensign Fathom. Truth is, I used a good deal many different names early on in my writing career. Here's one name was stuck faster than all the others, but, we'll get to that. All in due time. Well, of course, the Mark Twain comes from when he was a riverboat pilot. And he tells the story in the show about how it was the leadsman's job to take a constant measure of the river's depths as they were steaming into it. And that the boats drew 9 feet, so you needed at least 2 fathoms of water for safe travel.
How much is 2 fathoms?
2 fathoms is 12 feet. A fathom is 6 foot.
Okay.
And so every time that the leadsman would measure the water, and he'd have to report it up to the pilot house through the speaking tube. And every time that speaking tube would roar, "Mark Twain!" Well, I felt a profound sense of relief. Well, he ends up using Mark Twain as a name when he's out west, when he first starts to gain popularity. And so he doesn't want to change it because now people recognize the Mark Twain name. He went through a lot of different names, but he also used Mark Twain because he was writing his letters to the newspapers, mocking the area politicians and lampooning the local luminaries, and the name provided him with a veil of anonymity because not everybody he was mocking found it to be so funny as he did.
And did he get in trouble with local politicians and people?
Oh, I think he probably did, but not to any real extent that I've been able to find.
Right.
Yeah.
Huh. And what are some of your very favorite Mark Twain quotations? He's super quotable. People are always quoting Twain.
Well, he's got a quote that I've sort of taken, and I use it for actors now, which is, there's 2 places that actors pray, in the church and backstage. Only difference is they mean it backstage.
That's funny. Love that. And supposedly he said about writing, if I had more time, I could have made it shorter.
Yeah. He said it takes him a good 2 weeks to prepare a good impromptu speech.
I love that. All right. Well, now we got to sign off. It's been an hour. Been amazing.
Well, I hope the audience has enjoyed our program today. And if they have, I hope they'll tell their friends and family how much they enjoyed it. If not, I hope you just lie to them.
I hope so, too. And Lawrence Miller's here, who's producing the March Monologue Madness fundraiser at the Morton. That's tomorrow, Saturday at 7:30 p.m.
Exactly.
Everybody,
Come early.
Thanks for tuning in to RadioFreeRhinecliff.org.
Well,
thank you all
for having us on.